So as I discussed in the last video, VLANs are the most common way to segment traffic. Okay, so we'll discuss about VLANs in this video, right? So virtual local area network is what VLAN is. VLAN is a virtual local area network which are used, so VLANs are basically used to create separate broadcast domains in a layer 2 network and are often used to restrict traffic or allow access to the traffic. So basically it creates a separate broadcast domain, creates a separate broadcast domain, right, which is in a layer 2 network. Let me write that down as well. In an L2 network, which is often used to restrict access to the network resources, right? Now VLANs are, I'm pretty sure by now you know that VLANs are extensively used in the .3 network, that is the switching networks, wired networks, for both security and also segmentation purposes, right? So mostly used in or widely used in 802.3 networks for security and segmentation purpose, right? Now in a WLAN environment, individual SSIDs can be mapped to individual VLANs. So in a WLAN environment, here, SSIDs are mapped to individual VLANs. So one SSID can be mapped to one VLAN, right? And users can be segmented by the SSID VLAN pair. So users are basically segmented as per the SSID VLAN pair that they have. Okay, right? So anyway, all this is basically all this while communicating through a single access point, of course. Each SSID can also be configured with separate security settings. So if you have 2-3 SSIDs, then you can have different security settings on each SSID. Separate, unique security settings as well per SSID, right? That also is very important. So now a common strategy that is used to create is, this entire thing of using VLAN and SSID, this commonly pretty much you would have seen, how this is done is to create a guest SSID, a voice SSID, and a data SSID in the Wi-Fi network, right? This is pretty much what you would have seen. All of them map to a different VLAN and all of them have different security settings also, right? Now let's talk a bit about what a guest VLAN should look like, or a guest SSID should look like. Now this is not how it is always configured like this. Something that is kind of like something which I feel it should be configured like. So SSID is mapped to the guest VLAN, usually have no security, and all the users are restricted away from the network resources. So guest VLAN, when a guest comes into your network, you usually do not put any sort of security because you want to make sure the guests have a good experience. They use something called the captive portal, which anyway we're going to discuss later on. But guest VLAN usually doesn't have layer 2 security. Okay, and once they are authorized, they are switched away from the network resources and they directly are routed off to the internet gateway. Usually that's what happens, right? So they are away from network resources and routed off to an internet gateway, right? That is what a guest VLAN is all about. Now coming to the voice VLAN, usually voice VLAN will have some security, of course. Okay, the voice SSID, basically the voice WLAN. Hang on, let me just do that once again. Yeah, so the voice WLAN, will have some sort of security. Usually what they have is a WPA2 passphrase, okay, because the voice over Wi-Fi clients, voice phones are, they need a quick handover or a quick handoff using roaming process. So you prefer a passphrase SSID rather than a .1x SSID, because the roaming becomes easy with passphrases, unless you have a good key caching mechanism when using .1x. But yeah, usually when I have we see a voice over Wi-Fi phone, right, using a passphrase SSID, passphrase settings SSID configured, right? So basically a voice over Wi-Fi client phones are routed off to a VoIP server, VoIP server, that provides the proprietary QoS services to the WLAN. So you need QoS services because the voice traffic needs to be prioritized, right? So basically it is sent on to the VoIP server. That's the kind of network resources the VoIP phone accesses, right? So that's the voice VLAN. Coming to the data VLAN. Now this one, the data SSID is basically using a stronger security solution. For an enterprise, what is the stronger security solution? It's .1x, that is usually used for also known as WPA2 enterprise, right? That's what they use for the data VLAN, and they have different sorts of access control list ACLs, to make sure what kind of access to the network they need to be given, or they need to be given full access or restricted access, or something that they cannot access or something that they can access, once they are authenticated, right? Once authenticated. Awesome. So now always remember, in the Wi-Fi network, all the security settings can be done on a WLAN controller if you are using thin APs, which is the lightweight access point, right? Now the settings need to be done on the wireless LAN controllers for that. However, if you are using APs which are not thin, which are standalone, which are managed by the cloud in certain vendor scenarios, all those security settings can be done on the APs itself, okay? You don't need to, or through the onto the dashboard of different vendors if they are managed by the cloud. If they're autonomous APs, then on the APs, but if they're managed by the cloud, then go onto the cloud and do the configuration. The security attributes will be pushed onto the APs from the backend, right? That's pretty much what happens nowadays in the wireless LAN controllers or the APs, right? So in the next video, we'll talk about the RBACs, and then I think that's it for the traffic segmentation part.